Welcome back to Legacy Masters, hosted by Next Level Games Danny Nong over the Queen's Birthday weekend 2017. This is round 4. Today, I've been Sully, and I'm gladly joined by the one and only Sean Brown from Team The Salt Mine and an amazing writer for MTG Goldfish doing their legacy over there.
You keep praising me. It's so nice.
Oh.
I love hearing this. It's so nice.
I can't praise you enough. You're doing some amazing work over there at the Salt Mine and really pushing legacy.
Yep. So here, another person pushing legacy is the man on the left of the screen, Mr. Stephen Stamopoulos, also the other host of the Salt Mine, and here on his signature Team Australia Delver. So this is basically like a bigger Grixis Delver. It's not playing Young Pyromancer. It plays Tombstalker instead, and a fully evasive threat base. Also has 4 Stifles, no Gitaxian Probes.
He is such a fan for the Tombstalker.
He loves a Tombstalker.
He has been pushing so hard for this card to be good.
Yeah, and it is. I think we probably will hopefully see it be great on camera.
Yeah, it's doing really well.
Him putting the signature monkey cage on the on the table as well for everyone
to see that amazing monkey cage. And on our right, we have Sin on Canadian Threshold, another very amazing regular to our weekly events.
Yep, both of these players really loving Delver. So Sin's list is very interesting. Unlike your typical, rug Delver with 4 Delvers, 4 Goose, and 4 Tarmogoyfs, his is 4 Delvers, 4 Mongoose, and 2 Hooting Mandrills, a very light threat base. But within his list, he also has Life from the Loam and Barbarian Ring to be able to not only fuel Threshold, but also act as either recursive removal or, recursive wastelands to really cripple the opponent.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, so a really nice bit of tech there. But otherwise, a few pretty stock parts there. His flex slots there are a Counterspell and he loves a Fire Ice. I mean, who doesn't love a Fire Ice?
Oh, I love a Fire Ice, and I play colorless.
Yeah, but the only issue, of course, with Fire Ice is that it can't kill a turn 1 Deathrite compared to something like a Fork Bolt. But, I mean, here, Sin really just adding a bit of spice to his deck list. Seems like he's mulliganed. I think his hand was a bit weak. Steve keeping his 7.
Which in this matchup might be really good for Steve.
I think the real key thing is whoever's on the play.
So we've got a Delver, a Counterspell, a Daze. 2 Delvers?
I think there's 2 Delvers. We've got 2 Delvers. Sin has a
Daze, Volcanic Island just playing now.
And I think he has a Stifle in hand as well.
I believe so as well.
So Steve has a Scalding Tarn to leave off with. Yep, which he plays. And I guess we're going to see a crack and going to see a Stifle.
Ah, beautiful.
Lovely stuff, right?
I love seeing the turn 1 stifling their fetch land.
The only issue here is that Sin doesn't have much else going on in his hand. He has turn 1 Stifle and then just the Daze, I think, and then a Wasteland to kind of follow it up. So he's really looking for a cantrip to be able to kind of get the ball rolling. Here we see turn 1 Deathrite. From Steve, likely getting an Underground Sea off his Polluted Delta, and Sin's going to Daze in response. So, nice exchange, right? Sin's getting, that Deathrite off the table, which can really, really cripple these rug Delver decks.
Yeah, because they do a lot of work.
Yeah, crippling your Mana Denial plan, destroying Threshold. But Sin now with the Wasteland as well. I don't think Steve has any mana sources left.
Yeah, I don't believe he's got any mana left.
So the full Mana Denial getting into operation, and Sin fetching a lovely foreign black bordered tropical island. He actually has a really, really lovely rug Delver list. I think almost everything is in foil.
Yeah, and, he doesn't have much not.
Yeah, so I think Steve rips off the top a land.
Yeah, getting the Delta straight off the top.
Yeah, getting the Delta straight off the top and finding a Volk. And now he deploys his Delver, and Sin's actually, I mean, it doesn't look like it. There's just a single Delver, but Sin is going to be under a bit of pressure if Steve can find another land now, because a second Wasteland is fired off. Yep.
He just drew a Wasteland.
And now the usual Delver mirrors happening now. Wastelands on both sides.
Yeah, what is land?
Yeah, what is land? Yep, so lucky Sin, as we said, he has a bit of a flooded hand. But Steve now flips the Delver to a Ponder.
The beautiful art Ponder, not like the new art.
Really? You like the Merfolk Lady?
I do like the Merfolk Lady. I do like the face in the background.
I don't know. I like the moons in the face.
You like the moons?
I'm the moons in the face kind of guy. Here we have
the moons in the face.
The moons in the face. Here we are. So Sin, cantripping around with his Ponder. Can't really see what he's got there, but ideally
blue.
He's looking for a threat here is what he's looking for. He wants removal and threat, and then he's really in this game. Because at the moment, he hasn't been able to capitalize on the mana denial that he's inflicted upon Steve.
Yeah.
But if he can find removal, get rid of this Delver. I think Steve might have a force for that, though. But if he can get rid of this Delver, that looks like a counterspell.
No counterspell.
Beta counterspell. Very lovely.
He does like his alpha and beta.
Yes, he loves his blackboard. I think in his sideboard he has some lovely beta red blasts as well.
You can also see that beautiful hat on Steven, the salt mine, producing their own hats as well now.
Yeah, I think it went onto the camera a few moments ago. All right, so here, Sin, so cantripping around. I think he drew a Delver.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like he's not going to deploy. Oh, I think it might have actually been a Hooting Mandrills.
Oh.
I think it was, yeah. It looks green to me. I think it might have been actually a Hooting Mandrill. So, as I said, if you can find, a green source is what he really needs. Another Wasteland Sin. So, could see 5 Wastelands fired off.
Interesting that he's holding the Wasteland back.
I like this because it's not great at the moment. If Steve never finds another land, you might as well have it to pitch to a Brainstorm that you draw later.
Sense. Yeah.
But at the moment, so another Daze from Sin. So it looks like Steve is going to Daze back, and Sin.
We're going to see a Force pitching Force.
So interesting. So why was there a Daze? Why did Sin not just pay for? Oh, okay. I think I know what Steve was doing here. So Steve wanted to Daze this back. Not because he wanted to, actually counter the spell, even though he got a Force of Will.
He wanted him to tap out.
No, he wanted his land back in his hand.
Oh.
So that he can preserve it from Wasteland.
Yeah.
And then he can be able to next turn cast any of his spells. So a really heads up play there, making sure that his he can deploy all these Delvers later on. So
that's an amazing read by Steven, knowing that Sin potentially has a Wasteland in hand, which he does.
Yeah. So here, Sin finds the Hooting Mandrills. Now he's just looking for a removal spell. He's desperate for a removal spell. And here we have... Yep, so there's the second Delver, as I said. Really, I think he wanted to get aggressive with that Daze and make that play so that he can, basically have lethal on board if he flips his Delver next turn. So Sin very far behind, not finding removal is the main issue. Yep. So there's the Wasteland.
Attacking in there with the Hooting Mandrills, would you just hold it back just in case the Delver doesn't flip?
Just in case the Delver doesn't flip. I think, the fact that Sin hasn't found removal, it kind of doesn't matter. I think he's basically ready to concede. He's ready to concede the game. You see him just scooping it up after he attacks with the Mandrills anyway.
Yeah.
But because there's nothing really that can get him out of that spot other than... Yeah, nothing. No, actually, I think he'd need to Brainstorm off the trop into Volk, Fork Bolt, Lightning Bolt, or Volk Double Bolt or something, so he can bolt twice.
Yeah, so he's probably 2 turns away from turning the corner.
He very much needed to deal with the Delvers a long time ago. So Steve really putting up the pressure with that triple Delver draw.
Yeah. Alright, going to sideboards. In Steven's sideboard, we have 2 Ancient Grudge, 1 Diabolic Edict, 1 Dread of Night, 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Fork Bolt, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Marsh Casualties, 1 Pyroblast, 1 Red Elemental Blast, 2 Surgical Extractions, 2 Thoughtseize, and 1 Winter Orb.
Yeah, so here I think one card that's going to be very good is the Diabolic Edict.
Yeah.
In these matchups, in particular against Rogue Delver, removal lines up very poorly. Hooting Mandrills can't get hit by Bolt. Mongoose can't get hit by Bolt, and Sin is going to be bringing in True Name Nemesis, I feel, and Diabolic Edict is quite good there. So that's great. He also will likely be bringing in the Red Blast effects, so the Pyroblast and the Red Elemental Blast. So these are good, of course, winning counter wars, and the Flusterstorm can be brought in for the same reason.
How do you feel about the Surgical Extraction coming in and try and take those Wastelands off
I think there's one reason why he'd want it. So usually some people like to do this, I'm going to wasteland your Trop and then surgical so you can't cast any threats. But I don't think this is a really good idea.
Okay.
It is a reasonable idea against Sin, though, because there is one bomb card that Steve probably cannot beat, which is Life from the Loam. This breaks apart Delver Mirrors because it allows you to continue chaining wastelands and basically have them, never be able to cast any spells. And hence I wouldn't be surprised if he brings in a Miser Surgical Extraction just as a bit of a hedge. It might have extra benefits. Maybe you get to do the Wasteland your Trop, Surgical that. But Life from the Loam is a big threat. So that might be something to think about.
And what would you board out for these cards?
So I think what you're boarding out, so you can do the usual boarding of, your Force of Wills or your Dazes. You might trim some of these. Steve's on the draw. He might trim some Dazes. I'm also not a big fan of the Counterspell and not a big fan of the Spell Snare in his list as a way of interacting. So the Spell Snare is not going to be hitting many cards other than Days, actually. So because Sin, of course, is not leaning on Tarmogoyf, where Spell Snare would be good. And Counterspell just a bit too clunky in these Manatite Delver Mirrors.
And he only has one of anyway.
Yeah, so you trim down on a few of these one-offs. I think Steve really has an advantage with his threat base, though. The Delvers, the Deathrights, the Tarmogoyfs, and the Tombstalkers, they all evade through everything, while Sin, of course, has only ground pounders other than his Delvers, and of course the true names he's bringing in.
Alright, and going over to Sin's list, he's got one Rough and Tumble, one Submerge, one Vapor Snag, one Surgical, one Grafdigger's Cage, Flusterstorm, two Fork Bolts, two True Names, two Ancient Grudge, and three Pyroblasts. What do you reckon? So I think you're saying True Name Nemesis is definitely
True Name Nemesis is definitely a huge benefit, even though it looks like these games are going to, degenerate into these wasteland offs. A lot of the time post-board, it gets much more grindy.
Yeah.
And you kind of end up hitting land drops, and True Name Nemesis breaks through really difficult board stalls for the Rug Delver deck.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely going to be a threat he's going to want to bring in. I could see the Pyroblasts and the Flusterstorms. I don't think I'd bring in all of the Pyroblasts, because these kind of have diminishing returns. You can either hit a Delver or a Cantrip, but if you draw too many of them, sometimes they can actually do too little when you're dead on board.
Yeah, and they're just drawing dead. You don't want that.
Exactly. So again, maybe bringing 2. He could bring in 3 if he has enough to cut. And I definitely like also bringing in the Fork Bolts as well. You need to kill those Deathrights on site. And that's probably a good one to bring in as well. I'm not sure about the Vapor Snag. I think it could be good. If you Vapor Snag a Tombstalker, that's a great feeling, I'm sure.
Yeah, it would make Steven pretty upset.
Yeah, pretty far behind when you Vapor Snag any of the Delve threats. But again, as I said, might be a bit loose. Honestly, I'm not really sure why Vapor Snag is in the sideboard, what his purpose is.
Might be against his favourite matchup, the Sneak and Show.
Yeah, could be reasonable against, I guess, a Gristlebrand, but it doesn't help if they've drawn 7 cards already.
This is true.
But anyway, so here we see Sin starting off on the play, fetching off a beautiful foil Onslaught Flooded Strand.
Yeah.
For a white-bordered Volcanic
So we're seeing a lot of lands in Steven's hand and a Ponder.
That's exactly where you want to be, though, in this matchup. You
and
want
a Brainstorm,
you want to have actually a pretty mana-heavy hand a lot of the time in these matchups to be able to, get through that early sub-game of those wastelands that we saw in the first match, and then kind of be able to push on through there where your huge bombs can kind of get through. And I think Steve's deck is full of these huge bombs. Tombstalker, True Name, these are all great cards.
I think I saw 2 Wastelands now on Sin's deck.
Yeah, so Steve goes for the turn 1 Wasteland. Really aggressive here. I think Sin also did not shuffle with his Ponder either. So I think that feels a little bit aggressive to me. But considering how flooded Steve's hand is, I think I know where the logic is coming from.
Yeah. He
doesn't actually really have much to do on his turn 1 other than like Cantrip from what I see, unless there is, a Deathrite or something, which I think there might actually be.
So that does look like a Vapor Snag that Sin just drew. No?
I think it's a Ponder, another Ponder. Yeah, he might have put back another Vapor Snag, though. We'll see.
Oh, it is a Ponder. So yeah, I think Vapor Snag and then Wasteland is still on top of his deck.
Right, okay. Alright, so Steve's going for so that black card was not a Deathrite, it was a Surgical Extraction. So here we see, so here the Volk's getting extracted. Yeah.
Which is a very interesting play.
Yeah, so as I said, looks like Steve might have brought in a Miser Volk, Miser Surgical, as I said, really to negate that life from the loam engine. But here also we see him cutting him off entirely of red spells.
Yeah.
And that's looking pretty good with Sin's hand
With the
having
bolt.
Lightning Bolt and Fork Bolt in it.
So yeah, that's now 2 dead cards that Steven
Yeah,
doesn't
basically,
have to worry about.
Surgical Extraction basically became a targeted him to Turak there.
Sorry about the camera there. Don't know what happened.
Yep, so basically a him to Turak is what that Surgical became there. So looking pretty good. Sin's going to be looking for now just some green
kissing
creatures.
the beta, or is it FBV?
So I think it's an FBB. So he looks at the life from the loam and probably saying this was the main target, but looks like I got a bit of value out of this surgical extraction here.
It doesn't look like Sin was playing a basic mountain either.
No, definitely not.
Unfortunately.
Definitely not. You can't in these Delver decks. You have to go full greed. Don't talk to me about basic lands.
Oh, you got to respect the basic lands.
Please.
Even in Eldrazi, I play 1 waste.
Please. if I see a Delver deck with a basic island, it makes me want to cry. So anyway, we see Steve surgicaling, then pondering, then Sin wastelanding. Looks like Steve, as we said, has a really mana-heavy hand. So after all this little bit of sub-gaming and everything, he now has his Deathrite on the board. And this is a great spot to be in, especially with all those removal spells turned off.
Yeah, those removal spells. Sin will be crying a little bit there, going, all right, I'm seeing a Pyroblast on top.
Yeah, so it looks like he's drawn. So he draws a fetch land because of course he doesn't want that Pyroblast, and I think that was the 3rd card below that he's going to be. Oh, okay, so he did draw a blast that was dead. That's a bit unfortunate.
Yeah.
So
it might have been 2 Pyroblasts.
Yeah, it might have been 2 red cards, and I think he was just looking for the fetch because he really needs to develop his mana at the moment. Of course, can only get Trops. Oh, Steve got the Stifle as well. Oh god. So it looks like Sin picks up his deck and puts it back because he doesn't get to find a land and doesn't shuffle. Yep, so the Stifle. All right, so here, Flusterstorms the Stifle back. Then gets his deck back and goes for this. As I said, the lovely Delver little sub game. So I like what Steve's done here, though. He actually, played that early game very well to get that Deathrite to resolve and then kind of finish his opponent off now. And looks like we're going to see a Tombstalker to finish Sin off.
The main reason this is Team Australia.
This welcome to Team Australia, friends.
Yeah.
Because here is Tombstalker in the house. Steve not opting right, so he doesn't have the mana to, doesn't have enough cards in graveyard to be able to play through Days. But a 3 mana 5/5 flyer is pretty good, right?
Yeah, it does a lot of work, especially when you're only essentially paying 2 mana.
Yep. So here smashes in for 5. This is a really fast clock.
Yeah, so just tell me a bit more about the Team Australia list. Like, how did this list come about?
So Steve started actually playing the old 4-color Delver. If you've ever seen Ben Friedman's 4-color Delver deck, which featured a Snapcaster Mage, Gurmag Angler, Abrupt Decay, Lightning Bolt, and things like that. He's a big fan of kind of being a bit mid-rangier with his Delver decks and having like a lot of, being able to interact on a very fair axis. Eventually, he felt that Gurmag Angler, wasn't as great as he felt it was. Yeah. And he opted for a 1-of Tombstalker that he took to I think it might have been a 1-of or a 2-of, that he took to the top 8 of CanCon.
Yep.
So that was 4-color Delver, but with Fatal Push printed and Miracles banned, basically what he transitioned to was, I don't need these Abrupt Decays anymore. Yeah. But Tombstalker's still great. Yeah. He realized that Tombstalker's still great. And therefore, we come to basically cutting all the green from that 4-color deck and becoming a pure Grixis list, of course, with the light Trop Splash for Deathrite's activations. And then, of course, we're keeping the Tombstalker. So it's really an evolution of 4-color Delver into this Team Australia list, but of course it's now much leaner because you don't have the clunky abrupt decay, and
Which
you
is
run a
beautiful.
full set of stifles as
Yeah.
well. So it's a very lean list. Even leaner, I might say, than some of the typical, Pyromancer lists, because Pyromancer is a bit of a clunky threat at times.
Yes.
While this is all about, interacting with counter spells, and not really having that proactive angle of Gitaxian Probe Cabal Therapy or anything like that. Right? So here, finishes off with a Lightning Bolt. The 2 flyers. Again, you can see that board state there. A fully uninteractive force of creatures. They all can't be blocked. Tombstalker, Delver, and Deathrite. All their damage just comes across no matter how many blockers your opponent has. And Sin shows the full hand of red cards.
This is my red.
This is
you
my
did
red
that
card.
very well.
Yeah. So anyway, as I said, Steve getting, I think he's showing off there the Miser Surgical, and Sin again showing off that he brought in those Fork Bolts, brought in the Pyroblast, and as I said, I think when Steve was looking through his library with the Surgical, we saw the true names as well.
Very nice beta red elemental blast there.
Yeah, from Steve there.
But yeah, that Miser Surgical did a lot of work in that game.
Yeah, the 2 friends shaking hands. Steve knowing he kind of stole the game away a little bit there with that surgical extraction play.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess we'll wrap up that round there.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for round 5 on the TCM channel.
Yep.